Morning, everyone. I'll just wait for a few people to join in, and then we'll get going. So I wanted to do a live Q&A session this morning in order to address some of the questions I know are still out there, but also specifically on a couple of topics which I've listed in the. I can't believe you're first in again, Leandrew. That's hilarious. So yeah, very good. Well done, you. 3 days running, I think it is actually. Morning all. So yeah, so let's talk about some of these issues. Hey, Asha Tours. So there are a couple of things I want to be clear on, and I'm going to talk about. Actually, I'm just going to wait. So I got 120 odd people in so far, so that's probably a good point to start this. So so I want to talk firstly about DV 2020 cases that were issued visas either prior to the April 23rd ban being introduced, which is the original 10014 ban, the immigrant ban, or people that subsequently got reissued visas in September. So they're reissued visas or issued visas, I should make clear. Really, anybody that got a DV 2020 visa that they have not yet activated by entering the USA, right? So this important information concerns you if you're in that position. Whether or not your visa is currently expired or soon to expire or expired last year, it's all the same. DV 2020 cases, you all need to hear this. So Charles Cook and the Aker team. So the Aker team is led by Jesse Bless, and so the original Gomez case is an Aker case. Aker being the Institute of Lawyers, immigration lawyers in this country, a sort of collection, a body that deals with all of the immigration lawyers in this country, that is there to assist those immigration lawyers, that meets on behalf of all immigration lawyers with the government periodically, etc., and really moves things along, for immigration in this country. Very important body. And Jesse Bless has absolutely understood the plight of the DV lottery selectees, and has been working hard, on that for some months. I was working with him last year when they were gathering some information for the Gomez case, and I'm in touch with Jesse, although I know he's a very busy man, so I try not to bother him too much. And then, of course, we're aware of Charles Cook, Chuck Cook, Greg Siskind, Jeff Joseph, that team of lawyers, and they have worked on the Aker case, right? So both from Chuck Cook and from Aker, there are discussions about wanting to be prepared to ask in the appeal process for the original DV 2020 case, the Gomez case, in the appeal process for another extension of visas that were issued last year, but the people were unable to so far use those visas. Now, I am hopeful, just let me say, I'm hopeful that Biden will remove the proclamation 10014. I am hopeful of that. And I'm going to talk about that in a few moments. Some stuff he said that's been sort of misunderstood. I'm still hopeful of that. But of course, Chuck Cook and co. and Jesse Bless obviously want to be prepared for what if he doesn't do that, right? So what they're asking for is for people to provide information with regard to the DV 2020 cases. If you had a visa issued last year and have not yet used it, you haven't yet activated it, then I would like you to go and fill in a simple form for Chuck Cook to get that information, right? And the idea of this form, and I'll show you the form in a moment, but the idea of this form is to collect information so that the Gomez and Aker teams can present this information to the judge saying, look, there are all these people that are going to be impacted. if you don't allow extension of visas. And as the rules or the procedures stand today, I won't say the law, but as the rules and procedures stand today, it shouldn't be possible to extend those visas anymore, right? So it's important that we have two ways of looking at it. Biden should remove the ban, and then you can use your visas by, March, right? Or we get the Judge Mehta from the previous case, to intervene and tell the government to extend those visas once again. And it's for that second sort of thread, if you like, that I want people to fill in this form. So let me just show you some of the information about that. I'm going to share my screen here. And that screen, okay. So, so here's where you would come. So here's what Charles Cook has said. And, as we work to make sure that all DV 2020 visas will be reissued, that might expire or expired. Please provide your info in this Google Docs so we can present it to the judge and State Department. There is no charge for protecting you. Firstly, there's no charge to this. That's fabulous. They're working for you without charge. Can't ask for more than that. And here's the form that he's directing you to, and I'm going to put the link to this form in the chat, and I'm also going to make sure it's under the YouTube video that that will be left as a recording for this. So let me put that in the chat now. Please hold your questions, by the way. I find I get very behind with questions. So for now, hold your questions. Don't ask questions right now until I'm ready to take questions, because I'm just going to have to scroll past a bunch of questions that you're asking, and so just wait for those, okay? Just hold off on your questions for the time being. Okay, so here's the simple form. You're going to put in your first name, your last name, your DV case number. You can put it in either format, so either 2021, 2020, obviously, AF or whatever the region is. Make sure you put the year and the region, right? And then either put in the full number, which is like 000123455, or better yet, I think, ignore those leading zeros. Don't put in the 000 that starts. Just put in AF, 12345. So 2020 AF 12345, right? Put that in. It'll be enough to be clear. Give the date of your visa issuance. Now, if you were reissued, I wish they'd done this form a little bit differently. I should have actually spoken to Chuck about this beforehand. But when they talk about the date of your visa issuance, talk about the date it was issued, not the original issuance. Now, let me be clear. If you have a reissued visa where your visa was issued from before April 23rd, then you were never banned. You were always excluded from the ban, and you could have entered. You were not subject to PP 10014, and you can still enter right now. Okay, and I'll go on to a complication about that in a moment, but that's the reality. There's no reason for you to not use that. Now, you may be restricted because of travel in your country or something like that, or you may also be impacted by the Schengen area bans or whatever. That's a separate conversation. But in terms of the ban from PP 10014, if you had your visa prior to April 23rd, you should not be subject to the ban, no matter what annotation, whether it did or didn't say anything on your visa. It doesn't make any difference. The annotations are not, they're not binding. So you are able to use those. And then what date does your visa expire? And then are you a plaintiff? Now, this is a bit of a confusing statement in itself. What they mean here is a named plaintiff in Aker or Gomez, and it really is about Aker. There are only 6 or 7 Gomez named plaintiffs, and for example, Golden, you'll know who you are if you're listening today. You were a named plaintiff, Golden, of Gomez, and so you would click yes in this box, but almost nobody else on Gomez was a named plaintiff. So the question here is, are you a named plaintiff on the Aker case? Everybody now is protected by the DV 2020 Gomez case, but this is specifically about people who got a visa or either by reissuing or because they got a visa in the last 3 or 4 weeks of September, right? This is about that. So are you a plaintiff? Hopefully that's, so it's a simple form. Go ahead and fill that in. I just also, while I'm showing you my screen, I'll show you this this email. So there's an email that's come out, and one of my blog followers posted this for me. So thank you for that, Anne. So Jesse Bless and the AILA team sent out this sort of update, which talks about the current position, which is an interesting email. And most of you 2020 people should have got that. The people they will have sent this to, by the way, are the people they know about, and I collected around about 1,000 contact details, which I only collected that information to provide it directly to the AILA team. I did that in April or May of last year. So you're likely to be getting these emails if you were on that list that I put together by getting your responses, and I provided that information directly to to the AILA team. Okay. In this email, right. In this email, it says that Gomez Counsel may ask the court for emergency relief, including requesting the reissuance or extension of such visas. And he's talking about visas which were issued last year. Okay. So, all right. So that's the important information I wanted to get out about DV 2020 issued cases. This is not the whole of DV 2020, and I'm sure we'll have some questions about that in a moment. But this is just about issued cases. Okay, hope that's clear. Okay, let me talk about a couple of other points. IATA. IATA is a travel organization, essentially, that similar, I suppose, to AILA, helps travel agencies and travel bodies organize themselves. It's not a government organization. It's a travel organization helping airlines and that sort of thing. Now, they have published a statement saying that DV visas, and it's unfortunate how they wrote it because it's incorrect. It's just plainly incorrect. They said DV 1, 2, and 3, those visas are not valid, right? And said very little else. And some people on Twitter have freaked out about that, and it's the normal thing. People, give authority in the statements to someone that has no authority to make it, right? And then they get freaked out about it. So here's the situation. IATA are an important body, but they are not a government organization, and they are not the authority to decide whether a DV lottery visa is valid or not. They're not the authority. So don't worry about what they've said. They've said a stupid thing. They're incorrect. It will be corrected. But don't worry about what they've said. It's not an example of the government or Trump doing something else or anything like that. It's just an example of bureaucratic misunderstanding. That's all. It's just as simple as that. It doesn't mean any rules have changed. It simply means that they don't know what the hell they're doing. And that's not a shock, right? Because the government, frankly, have really put bad information out there. They're disorganized shambles. They're a mess. They're led by, currently for another few days, they're led by Trump. And the whole thing has just been a shambles for the last 4 years. Just can't organize a piss up in the brewery, this crown. Not surprisingly, they've managed to give bad information that's then been published by another body, and that body has got it wrong, right? So okay, just ignore it and move on, right? It's nothing more than that. The only bad thing is that airlines will be looking to this organization for information. So airlines now, we can probably see why airlines have taken a different approach since the beginning of the year. There was talk about a list being published with names on it. There was no such list. There was never such a list. And there was talk about embassies had been contacted and told not to let people travel. I don't believe that either. But I think what did happen was that the Border Patrol probably put out some information. The travel industry interpreted it incorrectly, and caused a sudden sort of slam down, which would affect someone who is able to travel one of the people that, for example, had a visa prior to April 23rd of last year, it would affect that person just as bad as it would anywhere else. Now, in reality, nobody, everybody else is subject to Proclamation 10014, everybody else other than the people that had the visa prior to April 23rd. So you shouldn't be traveling at the moment. But it's not because IATA say so, okay? Okay, next, sorry, that was that topic. Let me move on to another topic. Biden's speeches and statements about plans. Okay, so Biden is making a number of speeches introducing various picks. So when a government, when the government is changed and we have a new leadership in the government, Biden is able to put people in charge of his administration. They put people in charge of various government posts. There are career people who stay at various government jobs, regardless of which administration is in power. But the leaders of those organizations tend to be politically picked, right? Picked by the political leader of the day. And so Biden has been nominating or picking, if you like, picking and saying who he will have running various organizations. And so there are a number of really excellent speeches on Biden's Twitter feed. It's available on his website, etc. as well. The speeches are really quite good. You should, if you have a chance, and if you want to understand this man and whether he's a decent man, etc., as I've said he is, you should listen to some of these speeches. I'll come back to that in a minute. But during one of these speeches, it was reported by a few people actually, and I don't mean to pick on anyone, so I don't want to show names or whatever. But it was reported that he had said he's going to remove all immigration executive orders, and that is not what he said. Okay, he didn't say that at all. But what somebody did, and what a few people did, was they heard the word immigration in one sentence, and very quickly Biden moves on to another topic about removing executive orders. And then they imagined that they had heard that he had said that he's going to remove all the executive orders in relation to immigration. And he didn't say all. He didn't say he's going to remove the executive orders in relation to immigration. That was just fanciful, hopeful imagination at work by people who then reported it on Twitter. So that rumor is now going to be going around that Biden has said he's going to remove all of the executive orders on immigration, and he did not say that. So what is he going to do, right? He's going to remove the Muslim ban, I am 99.9% sure, on day one, right? I also believe he's going to remove PP 10014 if he can, either on that same day or quickly thereafter. I just put in that little qualifier saying if he can, right? Because he obviously is working in a dynamic environment. It's not so much that PP 1004 is a good idea. It absolutely isn't a good idea, and it's complete bullshit that was anything to do with jobs. It just wasn't. I mean, it just wasn't. It was about racism, nothing but racism. It wasn't about COVID. It wasn't about jobs and protecting American workers and everything else. If you really want to protect American workers, you test. You don't keep a few thousand people back who've been through a rigorous process of immigration. That's nonsense. Please, let's not pretend that that's what that was about. It was about racism and bigotry and stupidity. I thank Donald Trump for pulling back the mask on making absolutely clear that everything I've been saying for several years is absolutely true about the man. He's a disgusting, despicable human being, and now everybody understands that because of what he's done this week. So thanks, Donald Trump. Appreciate it. So in terms of the what Biden will do, we'll have to wait and see. Okay, he can't do everything that we would like, and he's got certain priorities. His priority number one is going to be the whole COVID pandemic crisis, vaccinations, enhanced testing, sort of dealing with the pandemic. Priority number 2 will be the economy. It'll be getting people back to work. It'll be making sure people are vaccinated because of the COVID crisis. It'll be doing all those things, etc. And one of the things he's going to have to do is to drive a program of investment of trillions of, could be trillions of dollars, an enormous amount of money of investment in jobs and protections to tide people over in the short term, but also create jobs for the future that will, that will require, that will drive economic growth again. And those are the sort of the 2 main things that he's got in his mind. He certainly has got some ideas to improve immigration and has talked about, in a speech this week, about introducing an immigration bill. But immigration laws are very, very difficult to change. There isn't good consensus between all of the political parties. There's not good agreement between all of the individuals, right? So it's not even a party political situation where you can say, well, the Republicans don't want immigration, the Democrats do want immigration. It's not as clear and simple as that. It's very difficult to make changes to immigration because it's such a difficult topic. It is a very, very difficult topic. There is certainly immigration reform needed, and part of that immigration reform could, in time, take away the DV lottery. Right? I'm clear that that could happen, and it may happen. Right? But it won't be quick, and it won't happen to DV 2020 or DV 2021 or DV 2022, and probably not to DV 2023 either. Okay, so don't worry about immigration laws coming in. They're not going to take away the DV lottery process immediately. That's not how laws work, right? And in October of this year, they'll announce DV 2023 entry period. So it takes quite a long time to stop this process. So, so just remain calm about that. What he can do, though, is he can remove executive orders that Trump has put in there. And it was a fantastic thing that that the Georgia elections went the way they did this week, where we've got an additional 2 Senate seats. That has given control to Biden in the Senate, as well as having control in the House by a narrow margin, but at least at least control. So basically, there are 50 senators for Republican Party. There's 50 for Biden. And because when there's 50-50, if they vote along party lines, the vice president has the ability to be the tiebreaker. The vice president, of course, is Kamala Harris, and she will obviously give Biden's priorities, her vote, right? So, so Biden has, thankfully, thanks to the work that was done in winning the Georgia elections this week. He's got control of the Senate, he's got control of the House, and he obviously is in the White House. So he can achieve some things, but it's slim margins. It's not like he can achieve everything just, whatever the heck he wants. He still has to negotiate with people who have opposing views, okay? So I did say I'd come back on the speeches that Biden has been given. I just love the fact that when he is giving a speech, etc., and he's in front of reporters, which he was doing in some of these videos that are made available, if you notice, he gets questions from reporters in the same way that Trump has been getting questions from reporters all this time. Unlike Trump, though, he reacts to the reporters in a decent, humane, respectful way. He answers the questions. He listens to the question. He answers the questions. He allows a follow-up to the question. And when he's asked a straightforward question, he just gives a straightforward answer. He was asked about, do you think Trump should come to the inauguration? Trump has said he won't come. Do you think that's a good thing? Yes, it's a good thing. Do you think Mike Pence should come? Yeah, absolutely. Mike Pence is welcome. That's the way he answers the question. These are political, difficult, nuanced points, but he's a straightforward, straight-talking guy, and he just answers the question from the heart. And that's what I expect from a decent person, right? And I do believe that Biden is a decent person. I am quite sure I'm not going to agree with everything he does over the next few years, but I believe that he'll do it from a position of wisdom. He'll listen to people. He'll expect to be challenged. He'll work with people who don't agree with him, and he'll be a decent human being throughout the whole time. And that is not what we've seen for the last 4 years. We saw a scumbag and who treated people with a complete lack of respect because he had, his own agenda, which was about self-serving interests. Okay, so I am hopeful that Biden is going to, do some great things, not because I believe in his politics necessarily, but I believe in the man as being a decent human being. I also think that there's going to be good opportunities in all of this growth that Biden is suggesting. He's talking about heavy investment in green economy and that sort of thing. These are new sorts of jobs. So whereas, for example, the old investment might have been investment in the oil industry or anything else, he's going to be talking about investment in wind strategy or solar or whatever it might be, green economy. And these are areas that we as the world's leading economy can actually excel in and can push. So, this could be extremely significant. He's talked about investment in infrastructure, etc. Building roads, trains, and that sort of thing. Could be lots of very lucrative, interesting jobs. So, so now is starting to look like this could be a very good time to come to America. Okay. Okay, let's switch back and have a look at some comments. So I'm now going to talk and take a few questions, right? So if you've asked questions up to now, repeat it one more time. Please don't be that guy. Don't be the guy I get on every call that repeats questions 48 times, please. And thank you, especially for reiterating that, holding the questions. So, okay, so... And let me know if any of that didn't make sense. So, Sergio, welcome back. So, just for clarification, who is filling this form for the Gomez case? Principal for himself. Yeah, it's the principal. It was one filing. So, you don't have to file 3 times. Please don't do that. Just give them the DV case. And they just want to get a list that they can present to the government to give a scale of the cases. It could be advantageous for the people filling out this form. I'm not saying it makes you like a named plaintiff, but if the judge has this form, based on past behavior, he's probably going to say to the government, have you taken care of that person on that form? Where's that form? How many of those people have you dealt with? Right? So if I were in your position, Sergio, and anyone else like you, I would want to get my information onto this form this weekend without fail. Okay, so please, if you're listening to this, please make sure you do that. Okay. Nurek, more likes for this great man. I think are you talking about me or Biden? Hopefully Biden. He's the great man. I'm just talking about it. How much percent Biden will cancel? I can't say percent, and I can't say he'll cancel on day one. By the way, Amadei. It's not 100%. I'm talking. If you look at an article I wrote, I'm talking about why I think he'll remove it. I haven't said, and I'm not predicting that he's going to remove it on day one. I hope he will, but I'm not predicting that. It's not 100% sure he will. He's got to weigh up all of the other problems going on. Okay. Are the dates for interviews been released yet? No 2NLs have been sent. No interviews have been arranged by KCC. Hi from Nepal. Yep. Hello. Jose Luis. Let's say I can't prove I have 10K in cash, but I can show I'm the owner of a property valued 100K. Can I get a sponsor and present I-134? Or should I get a sponsor? Yes, you should get a sponsor and present the I-134. Having a property valued at 100K is completely meaningless. You could have a mortgage on that property of $98,000, right? And 98K. And so number one, the property itself, is not interesting, and importantly, it's not a liquid asset. You may or may not be able to sell that property immediately to be able to release the cash. But just because you own it doesn't mean it's all yours. I live in a $2 million house. It doesn't mean I have $2 million. I've got a mortgage on it, right? So, so the fact that I've got a mortgage, or sorry, the fact that I've got a property that I can't sell overnight. I can't sell this house and just have $2 million tomorrow, can I? Because number one, I can't sell it overnight. And number two, I would have to pay off the mortgage that is on there, right? So, So, see what I mean? So yeah, you should, because of that, you should get an I-134 or have a sponsor. Okay, let me skip through. So, has KCC asked, requesting documents of DV 2021? Yes, they have. They tend to go in order. It's not 100% of the time that they go in order. If they run out of work, they might ask people from very high case numbers for documents, but they have been asking people for documents. If you haven't been asked for documents, that's not necessarily a problem. It may just be that you've got a very high case number. Okay? Adam Call, could Gomez file a motion to inform Meta about December 31st extension? Oh, absolutely, they're going to be discussing that, yes. Gomez will be, in the Gomez case, they're going to be talking about that. The Gomez appeal, which is due to be heard on the 14th, is challenging the original ban that has now been extended, right? So without a doubt, they're going to be talking about the extension, okay? Okay. DV 2021 with case number 35XX, still hoping for the best. Yeah, okay. When you give me case numbers though, God Seven Stars, please make sure you list the region, because you could be, with that number, you could be in Asia, Europe, or Africa. And in Africa, that's a low number, relatively low, medium low. In Europe, it's pretty high, and in Asia, it's very high, right? So different, same number, different answer for those. How is the selection done? It's random, completely random, George. It's just like, imagine this. Entries come in from all over the world. They're separated into different regions, right? And imagine those regions are very big hats, and then they start drawing numbers out of the hat, right? It's like that. Number 1, number 2 for Africa, number 3 for Africa. A separate hat is over here, number 1 for Europe, number 2 for Europe, number 3 for Europe. It's like that. It's just random, and it doesn't matter whether you're married or single. It doesn't matter whether you're a lawyer or a librarian. They're not interested in in what you do, how many kids you have, whether you're married or single. It's random. They also don't care when they're doing that draw. They don't care which country you're in either, right? So there is no priority given in that draw to countries within that region. Every case number has, at least to start with, has the same chance of selection. I've written extensive descriptions about this. They're available on my blog. I also have a video on my YouTube channel that explains that more clearly as well. You were talking about me. Thank you, Narek. Okay, I appreciate that. I'm flattered. Do you think SA case numbers could get current this year? I've talked about that several times. South America is it's a weird one to predict. Probably even without all this craziness, I wouldn't be predicting for South America, because there's too much new stuff going on. Peru is new. Cuba is affected by the situation in Cuba. Venezuela is affected by the political situation there. And between those 3 countries I just mentioned, that's almost all the SA cases, right? So it's just not a good idea to try and predict that particular region in any way, shape, or form. So your case number might, on the face of it, be high. It is a little bit high, but that doesn't mean that you won't have a chance. Now, having said that, what's far more important than any case numbers this year is when they start interviewing. How many months we are left with, of interviews? What's the situation with the embassies with COVID? What happens with lawsuits and everything else? And so for all those other reasons, I'm not predicting anything anyway. Okay. Gloria, thank you very much. Any hope for DV 2020 Group 3? Group 3 were people at the embassy. So you were at the embassy, you had been sent to the embassy and you were from Ghana. Right, so I don't know the today's status in Ghana, but if, for example, when we get to March, which is, you're going to have to wait till March to find out, right? Middle of March, there will be a final hearing on the Gomez case. At that point, Judge Mehta may instruct the government to issue those additional 9,095 visas, or by that time, we may have actually got Mehta to agree that his math was wrong on the 9,095 and maybe increase that number, right? Both things are possible, sort of. But if if we only have 9,095, but he tells the government to get on with moving those cases through, Group 3 meant that, if you've quoted your group correctly, in my opinion, Group 3 means that you were at the embassy, but you had an interview cancelled, right? And in that case, as long as Ghana is working, it should be very easy for you to get an interview at that point. But it depends whether Ghana embassy is working or not, and whether the judge says that these cases have to be treated as emergency or mission critical cases. And that's why I've said to the lawyers, I believe we should be asking for immediately, straight away, for the judge to say these are mission critical. We did not get that on September 4th. We only got that statement about mission critical nature of these cases on September 14th. And that 10-day period was difficult because some embassies were refusing to work. It was only when Meta said, no, you're going to treat these cases as mission critical, that we actually unjammed a lot of cases, right? So I think, and I advise you all, if you can, get across to Chuck Cook, and Chuck Cook, I know understands this, but I think Jeff Joseph perhaps didn't understand my point the other day, and perhaps Greg Siskin does or doesn't, I don't know. But this is an important point, that we need the judge to say, if he's going to say 9,095 go, we need him to also say mission critical, right? And if he doesn't say it, then we need Biden to say it. Somebody needs to tell the embassies to treat these cases as important cases and find a way to interview. Okay, so you'll have to wait and see. Gloria is the answer, the honest answer there. Can't tell you 100%. Just got you ready for scheduling email. So KCC is working. Thank you, Salish. Yeah, I know they're working, and it's good that they're doing that. I wish they were doing more, to be honest. They could have been using this time when they're doing nothing else. They're not arranging interviews. They could have been using this time to get the documentation done for lots of cases, and they haven't done lots. They've done some. So, any updates to DV 2021? Not really, just what I've talked about. I mean, I think that my calls, these videos are constantly about DV 2021 and giving you the current status, but nothing specifically, no particular news, Vivek. Georgie, what's the point of removing the Muslim ban without counselling? Yes, that's one of the points I've made in my article, Georgie. That's correct. Tammy, if Biden removes the ban for the countries that are now banned, does it mean that the high case numbers will be at risk, since all the selectees from banned countries will be able to participate? Yep, I've made that point before. That's exactly what that means. And that will disappoint some people, but that's fair, right? The reality is that these countries that have been banned wrongly, banned because of their religion. Now, I'm no fan of religion, but I would not ban anybody based on their religion, right? That's an unfair. I wouldn't condone banning them on religion, their sexual choices, their sexual preferences or choices, their lifestyle choices, their color of the skin. None of that. If you do that sort of stuff, if you say in front of me that you are anti someone because they're gay or because they're Muslim or because they're Christian or because they're black or because they're pink or green or whatever else, then in my mind you're a hateful person and you need to get over yourself, right? Because people are all equal, we're all human. So no, I don't condone any of that. But in reality, back to your question, yes, if the people that are currently banned get unbanned by Biden, which is something that he has said he's going to do on day one, then that means that high case numbers in certain regions, Africa partly, and certainly Asia, will be impacted. For Asia, that would be very difficult for high case numbers. Yasser Said, I'm 2020 window, got my green card. Oh, you're very welcome. Congratulations, Yasser. Good luck in your USA journey. Danishan, greetings from Sri Lanka in the DV Group 4, hoping for a miracle. Yeah, so you're ready for scheduling. You'll need a bit of a miracle, but also as soon as we get this case through, you should be you should be on the phone to KCC. Be ready to do this, right? Make sure you know how to call KCC. make sure you know how to call your embassy. So as soon as we get the 9,095 through, the people that get interviewed will probably be people with low case numbers. That's, they're going to be, benefiting probably. People at the embassy already, or people that get pushed to the embassy because the embassy has agreed to help them. So, you should be prepared and ready to be able to do that when the time is right. The time is not right now. Don't do that now, but be ready to do that later on. So have the phone number for the embassy ready. Have the email address for the embassy ready. Do not email them 50 times a day from now until then, because when you actually need to call them, when you actually need to email them, they're going to look at your email and they're going to say, "Oh, that pain in the ass again," right? So don't waste your opportunity here. Don't fire your weapon, using your remaining bullets before you actually before you can see the target in sight, right? That's a military thing for you, but you understand the point, right? Wait until the timing is right, and then get off your ass and call KCC, call the embassy, try and make it happen. Okay, then you fight. Then you fight for yourself. So one says, can I know up to how much cases DV winner gets to interview after travel ban in Asia, Nepal? I can't predict that. I'm not going to try, and I've explained about 1,000 times why. You think, Simon, in February, DV visa holders can travel? Thank you so much. I hope so. I think we're going to have all of February. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think I've said enough about that. It's not, I'm trying to hide what I'm saying. I think I've just been very clear about that. I'm hoping that Biden removes the ban. Okay, you're a DV 2020 visa holder subject to PP 10014. What can be done? So rewind the video, go back to the beginning where I talked about the DV 2020 info collection form by Charles Cook, and make sure you fill out your name there. Okay, if you just joined or you didn't see that earlier, rewind. Okay. Salish, what's your case number? Someone. I think if he removes the Muslim ban, he'll remove the. Yeah, I think you mentioned this earlier, Hamza. I agree with you. But you're now repeating, I think. Dip. I recently completed my master's degree after submitting the DS-260. Should I have to update my educational qualification or just do further processing with the same old DS-260? I wouldn't update my DS-260 for that. It's good. Congratulations on completing your master's degree, but you can take that information to the interview. Nothing will be decided about your case until the interview. KCC do not have the authority to decline any case, right? Actually, I want to talk about that. So you don't actually have to update your case. It doesn't make your case stronger in any way by updating your DS-260 at this point, right? So for things like address changes, job changes, and education completion and that sort of thing, you don't have to update your DS-260. There's no harm in updating it. It doesn't delay you in any way, but you don't have to do it either. So at the moment, I wouldn't do that. Now, I just want to touch on something I just thought about. KCC cannot deny any case, right? However, they do have rules in place about whether to schedule an interview for someone or not. And one of the rules is, has someone processed the DS-260 and has someone provided all the documentation? So it's starting to hit some people, and it's starting to occur to some people that the passport rule, as implemented, is going to cost them the interview, right? They're not going to be able to get interviewed because some people made up a bullshit passport number, right? They just made it up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and wrote it down on the form, right? And now KCC is saying, okay, provide us proof of your documentation, including your passport, the passport that you entered the lottery with, right? And if somebody can't provide a valid passport, unexpired passport, then KCC are within their rights to not schedule the interview. And you're not going to get approved anyway, I don't think. But that's probably how a lot of cases will be held back. Now, How many people lied like that? I don't know. That's another sort of factor in all of this to mean that we can't really predict what will happen this year. If 20% of the cases don't proceed this year, extra cases I'm talking about, then it will radically change the response rate or possibly the refusal rate based on the passport rule that hasn't been in place before. So it could dramatically change, what normally happens, if you see what I mean, in terms of the number of cases that respond and the number of cases that get accepted. So, we'll have to see how that goes. So that'll be an interesting thing. It might provide some hope and help to higher case numbers that have followed the rule. Abdallah, Gomez and Trump's ban extended. The email I received today says, please contact your attorney regarding next steps. I don't have an attorney. Your DV 2020 at AP. Okay, so you're at AP, you didn't get a visa, so you have to wait for the Gomez case. You are covered by the Gomez class action. You are a plaintiff, just not a named plaintiff. And your lawyers are the AILA lawyers, essentially, but you don't have to contact them. You don't have to do anything right now. You just have to wait and see what happens, with the outcome of the case, okay, which will be mid-March. So keep an eye. Try and pay a bit more attention because just the fact that you're asking that question shows you haven't paid enough attention. So pay a bit more attention to what I'm saying and what I've been saying over the last few months. Abu Bukar. I'm murdering that name. I'm sorry. People got visas, but they were stopped for enter America. Yes, I know, and that's correct. I'm afraid at the moment. So those people have to wait and see whether the PP 10014 is going to be removed or not. What do you think about the chance of winning an Enunciator case on 22nd of January? I don't know. The lawyers are very confident. I'm not going to try and predict the outcome. I think they've got a good chance. Let's say it that way. I think they've got a good chance. The arguments are strong arguments that are being made, and we've had success already. We've got good judge, and there's a lot of good things about it. But some of the things that we're trying to overcome are a little bit tougher, and I think might need to come politically rather than legally. But we'll see. We'll see. Any hopes that Biden will lift the UK and Schengen ban need to travel to the US before the 23rd of March? Thanks for what you're doing. MJ, okay, so the Schengen and UK bans, at the moment, only a bloody fool would make it easier to travel from the UK and Europe because of the extreme transmissibility of the new strain of the virus that is around in the UK. However, that's already here. So literally day by day, this position would change, right? And I think what Biden has to do is he has to implement restrictions on people as they enter. So what I hope he will do is say, look, you can get around the Schengen bans right now, and this is what I would say to you. Let's say he removes 10014. You could then get on a plane to Cancun. You could hang out in Cancun or some other third country for 14 days, and then you could enter the USA, right? You could do that. It's a bit of a hassle, but I'm suggesting Cancun. It's not like I'm suggesting, Siberia or something. I mean, I'm suggesting a nice place to hang out with Mai Tais and sit on the beach. But it's still a bit more of a hassle. And so it might be that he says, look, you can enter, but we need a test showing that you're negative for COVID, and it will have to be, so many days or whatever. And there's going to be enhanced procedures to make sure you quarantine once you enter the country. And so it might be hassle where you're stuck in a hotel. And that's what they're doing in some countries, some smart countries. If you enter Australia at the moment, you have no choice but to sit in a hotel for 2 weeks, right? And it's expensive. It's not cheap. You pay for that cost, and But if you really want to enter Australia at the moment, that's the price you pay. And I'm sure perhaps New Zealand is doing the same thing, and perhaps other countries where they can through very obvious borders that any island can do, right? So maybe Biden will move more towards those sort of strategies, but he won't just blindly remove the Schengen bans, etc. He'll have to be a bit more nuanced about it. But as I've said before, you have a way around that ban anyway, so don't worry about it too much. And it's changing day by day, so just wait and see what the situation will be. You know. Okay, I appreciate your help and support for Willows, says Layla. Do you think about removing immigration bans? Does it mean that after this order, all embassies will work normally? No, that's an important point. Okay, so Biden can remove the bans, but the embassies need to be told, to work normally now. And those two things are unconnected, right? The State Department has very recently started to allow embassies to make this decision at local level. The embassies were originally closed, I think, on March 17th of 2020 by central decision, by travels, the State Department, travel.state.gov, by the State Department saying the embassies are closing, right? And the embassies had no choice about that. They had to follow that order. And they stayed closed for a long time. And then the State Department have been relaxing slowly that position, but they've just recently relaxed it further by saying, okay, it's now up to the local embassy. But depending on what level, it's kind of like what COVID level, it's like a threat level. Depending on what level of COVID threat there is in that country, the embassies aren't all working in the same way in terms of which type of cases they take on. And DV lottery cases in many embassies are not considered priority. And so that's something that we might have to challenge and push for to have by central decision, either from Biden's administration and further statements through the State Department, or perhaps through a lawsuit that says these cases have to be treated as mission critical. Okay, so it doesn't automatically then. So removing the ban doesn't automatically mean embassies will work normally. But it's not, the point is not lost on either me nor the lawyers that that's something we have to achieve as well. IATA, I don't care about IATA. IATA is a bunch of numpties. I mean, they're going to fix the mistake on the webpage, and even if they don't, they are not the authority. Okay, Francisco, I think I was clear about that. I thought I was clear. If the embassy in the country I chose is closed, when should I contact KCC to transfer it to another country? I wouldn't do it too early. It is kind of simpler if you knew that you were about to be scheduled, and you phoned KCC a couple of weeks ahead of that time and said, I want my interview to be changed to this country for these reasons. They will sometimes entertain that, but not all the time. Sometimes they might just say, look, we've got too many requests like that. We can't sort it out. And so what we're going to do is we're going to send you to your original embassy, and you then speak to that embassy and the other embassy, and you get your case moved, right? So that might happen, but it really depends when you become current, if you're already current, if you're already ready for scheduling, etc. And when we start to see this, the unblockage start to happen. So keep a careful eye on that, Akaki, and hopefully you'll be able to make that happen. But you might have to do a bit of work for that yourself. Moving the case from one embassy to the other means you have to, let's say you're in Embassy A and you want to be in Embassy B. You have to contact Embassy B and say, I'd like to have my interview with you. Will you accept it? And they say yes. And then you speak to Embassy A, your original embassy, and you say, Embassy B have agreed to take it. Will you move the case? And then they'll send it, right? So you have to do that negotiation yourself. You should not rely on anyone else to do that for you. And then you should sort of babysit that through a little bit. Okay, so that's what might be what you have to get good at. Yeah, this is an important point, Mohammed. So extending visas requires that you pay the visa fee and the medical again. And so it would be better if they would say that the medicals that they have, and therefore the dates, are extended for another period of time. Now, the government have done this before. They did it last year. They extended medicals for a month. They could do that. There's various ways they could do it, but otherwise, yes, it's in some countries. I mean, imagine having to pay the $330 again. Some people have paid it already to get that reissued. Those people shouldn't be impacted. But some people already did pay that extra money in the medicals, etc. At the end of the day, it's horrific that you would have to pay that, but you might have to. We'll try and make it so you won't, but you might have to pay that money again. Okay. Gediminas. Yeah, there are lawsuits that seek to challenge the ban as well. Yeah. I live in California. I live in Northern California, just outside San Francisco. Yes, I've seen the IATA info, and it's bullshit. It's wrong, and I've spoken about it at the beginning of this video. So please wind back. When is the format going to be available? I'm in group 3. I don't know what you mean by the format, but when will we know? It'll be March when we know about that, right? How KCC processes cases if all case numbers are current? What kind of mess would that make? That's why they don't do that. They don't make the mess deliberately, and that's why they're not going to make all regions current and just create that disaster without good reason to do that, right? Have you seen any DV case where the initial visa has been extended after the fiscal year? No, I've never seen that. Up until last year, I hadn't seen any cases where the visa was extended at all. I used to tell people it wasn't possible, and it's only the COVID situation that made it possible. There was an allowance for it. It was technically possible, but I never encouraged people to actually expect that because it was frankly too difficult to arrange. And the standard required was that the reason you couldn't use the visa was beyond the applicant's control, and people misunderstand that level of understanding, right? They say things, well, I couldn't go because I couldn't give up my job. No, that is not beyond your control. Oh, I couldn't go because it wasn't convenient. The airlines were too expensive. No, that's not beyond your control, right? So beyond your control means something like a COVID crisis or the government ban or whatever. And so that's completely beyond your control, not your fault. Whereas most people misunderstand what beyond their control means. So the conditions really only existed last year for extensions of visas to, for large numbers of visas to actually be extended. So no, I've never seen that before. And the only rules that I've seen, which are rules not and procedures, not law, talk about being reissued in the same fiscal year. So we'll have to see how it goes. I'm good, thanks. I'm not your boss though. And visa holder DV 2020. What's the chance? Will the government remove the ban? Yeah, I've talked about that. What do you say about the January 14th hearing? Any ideas? I've talked about that a little bit. Nothing to add on what I've already said. How many case winners get interview after the travel ban? Your case number is 15, but you don't. Oh, it's Asia. 1,500. You're already current. So I mean, you're already current. So this is kind of a lazy question. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but it's a bit of a lazy question. If your number is only 1,500 and you're already current, why are you asking? What you're trying. You're already current, right? So, you're not high. Now, if your case number was 15,000, I would understand your concern. But you said your case number is 1,500. The validity of police certification sent earlier to KCC. Do we need to reissue if expired? Right. Where some people don't really understand this. So an issuing authority on a police certificate may say their certificate is valid for 6 months or for 3 months or for 1 month or whatever. That's their validity on that certificate. The validity that the government, the US government, takes into account is 1 year. Okay, for immigration purposes is 1 year, right? So you don't really need to extend any police certificate that is less than 1 year. You also don't need to extend a police certificate for a country where you haven't been back to after getting that police certificate. So if, for example, you 5 years ago lived in, some country and you haven't been back there, then the fact that that police certificate is, let's say, 2 years old, it should still be accepted. Now, if you want to get a new police certificate in any of those cases I mentioned, go ahead and do so. But actually, you don't normally need to. Okay. Case number 17,300. Do you think it's high? Okay, so case numbers start at number 1, and for Africa they finish at 88,000. You are between 1 and 88,000. 1 is low, 88,000 is high. You can figure out for yourself whether the case number is high or low. DV case number 18, is it current? You can read the visa bulletin. Another one, is it high or what? Whopper. Again, so for Asia, the case numbers go up to about 36,000. AS 17XXX, it's in the middle, right? It's not high, it's in the middle. Having said that, your number is probably a little bit more, it's going to get a bit higher because of the Muslim ban being removed, right? Yemeni and Iranian cases below your number are currently banned, but in a few days' time, they won't be banned anymore. So your number effectively will get higher. Somebody asked about this earlier. Jan, what do you think? When the interviews start, are they going to interview people following the past visa bulletin order, or they go with the embassy capabilities? Embassy capabilities. So once all the cases that are current, there's no need to go in that order, in case number order anymore. It's then up to embassy capabilities within the numbers that are current. And even within one embassy, there is no strict ordering between cases. So it's not like if your case number is lower than your friend's case number that you have to be interviewed on a day earlier than your friend, right? So within the embassy capabilities is the right way to look at that. Why African and European case number 29 considered as low case? Because they are different regions and different numbering, right? The numbers are all in different regions. There is a possibility of having Africa number 1 and at the same time EU number 1 and at the same time Asia number 1 or Oceania number 1. They all start at the same number in their own regions, right? And so in Oceania, the case numbers only go up to 3,300 or so. In Africa, they go up to 88,000, right? And so if your case number 29,000 or whatever, and you're in Africa, 29,000 is a much lower number in Africa than it is in Asia, for example, where Asia cases go up to 36,000 in this year, right? So it's a relative measurement compared to where you sit within the range for your region this year, right? It's nothing to do with previous years. It's not to do with the number itself. It's to do with the relative position of your case in your region in this year, right? What do I think about 18K Asia? It's better than 19K Asia. Other than that, I think I've covered it, Heba. Does KCC request documents a case number that is not current? Yes, they do. I asked this because case number is current, but I've not received email to send documents yet. Case number AF 11,000. Okay, so you could contact KCC and ask them if they're ready to ask for your documents. There's a couple of things that could have happened. Number 1, you could have been late to submit your DS-260, right? Number 2, your DS-260 might be complex to process because of your travel history or your occupation or something that makes it more complicated, or even your name. It could be more complicated to process than other cases. And then then I forgot where I was going with that now. So yeah, so the first thing is you might have submitted late. Second thing is it takes longer to process. Third thing is they might have sent you an email, but you missed it because it went to your spam folder or something. And also they're not a perfect situation. Anyway, email KCC and ask them if they want your documents. Simple answer. You asked that already, I think, Parsa, or someone did. If nothing happens, is there any way to do with expired visas? Well, that's what we're looking into. So please wind back to the beginning of the video and see what we want to do about that. AF 35,000. You submitted on October 12th. Yeah, so you submitted fairly late, and your case number is also not going to be current soon, right? So there is no reason for them to rush to your case, and you submitted reasonably late, so there are a lot of people who submitted before you. Okay. Satyam, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure you're asking for, you know, what's my chances and everything else, but I mean, I'm not answering those sort of questions. Nurek, you're going to ask it this again today. That's okay. Need a little hope. Okay, so you're a fifth group. So I think we have talked about this before, Nurek, right? You're in the fifth group. That means that for whatever reason, and I don't know why this happened, but for whatever reason, you didn't get your documents approved by KCC. If we only have the 9,000 visas, your case number is high. You didn't get your case documents processed, etc. And if there's only 9,000 visas, then what I can say is pretty confidently there is very little chance of you getting a. Oh, but you are a plaintiff. Sorry, you asked this the other day as well, and I also saw that you were a plaintiff the other day. So you may have a chance because you're a plaintiff, but that would be the only sort of pro in your favor. Everything else is negative about your case, if you see what I mean. Your high case number, your fifth group, category 5, but you're a plaintiff. So, you'll have to wait and see. It's difficult to sort of be specific, Nurek, but it hasn't changed since about 3 days ago when you asked this before, right? I understand why you're asking, Nurek. I really do. I get it. This must be mind-blowingly difficult for all of you guys, and I empathize. I do understand. I don't mean to be, sorry, I'm talking about Nurek. I don't mean to be glib about any of this. I hope none of you are insulted by that. But asking me questions, 2 or 3 days after you asked before, you're going to get the same "I don't really know" answer. But I think it's not looking great. Your only positive is the plaintiff thing. Parsa, you're beginning to sound like a broken record here. You've asked that before. Victor, probably heard about Charles Cook posted that they're negotiating with the government about the extension. Yep, I heard about it, and I've talked about it right at the beginning of this video, and I've posted the information collection form that he's asking people to fill in. Let me just post that again. I'm going to post it here, and I'm going to also put it in the description of the YouTube video underneath, right, in the description below in the YouTube video. Okay. Okay, how could Asia share the total number of visas based on the number of winners this year? Right, so I've calculated there are about 8,600 visas available, so 8,623 from memory, available on a mathematical calculation, which is to do with the way that the quota of the 55,000 visas are distributed within the regions. There is a way that they calculate that. It's based on the number of people coming in from various countries from within the regions and the number of inhabitants in each country, and there's a formula, mathematic formula. It's complicated and it's boring, and it will put you to sleep to even understand the damn thing. But anyway, that calculation comes out at about 8,600 visas, right? For Asia. There are far too many people, actually offered visas. So there is a problem there, right? And the problem's about to get worse for some people because some people who are currently banned are going to get unbanned on January the 20th. So there is a problem there for high case numbers. So that's the reality, right? How that will go. See, what we don't know is how many people will respond, how many people will get refused, how many people thought they didn't really need to provide a passport, or didn't need to follow the rules, right? Those things could be a little bit different this year. We don't know what's going to happen. So there you go. Got your green card in 2019 September. Can I apply for citizenship after 3 years? No. If you're a DV lottery green card winner, you have to wait 5 years, not 3. 5 years of residence. Okay. It's a great opportunity, but you don't want to pay the fees again. Yeah, I'm sure you don't. But if you have no other choice, you will, right? That's the reality. Sometimes, and in the long term, the fees, the fees will be trivial compared to, what you can make in America in terms of income compared to other countries. But yeah, I get it. It's not fair. It's not fun, but that happens. What's the process number? Case allocation for regions, because Asian region. Okay, so Zayan, it's a bit complicated to deal with on this call, but suffice it to say that based on what they think will happen, they sort of over-select a little bit in some years, and they pick the number of people. It wouldn't make sense to have 100,000 selectees in every region. Oceania, for example, gets an allocation of about 800 something visas, just over 800 visas, maybe 850 from memory. What would be the point of selecting 100,000? There's no point of that. And so because of that, they have a lesser number of selectees in Oceania than they have, for example, in South America or they have in Asia. Okay, and the same thing can be said for Asia and Africa and the EU. They look at the number of visas available for that region, and also they look at past history to say how many people apply, how many people actually proceed, how many people get selected, approved at the interview, and they roughly sort of estimate it, but they get it wrong in some years, and they overdo it in some years. And 2021 is an over-selected year. Okay. So so it's a little bit, there's no precise logic to the selection process. There's only precise logic to the quota process for allocation of issued visas, right? Christine, good. Following my videos, please help me on how to check how many people will be in front of me. I'll show you how to do that. So case number is AF11XXX. Is it a very high case number? Let's put it in. So I'll show you my screen. And you can do this. It doesn't mean a lot right now, but let's say you go and put in your number here. So you come into this web page, right? This is Zarthisius's web page. You scroll down on the DV 2021 data, and you can see that Zarthisius has added this handy little tool, and you can put in a number. So your case number is 11,000. Let me just guess. It's 11,123, right? It might be a whole, but okay. So there. Forget this. This isn't redrawn. I should have redrawn the page. Let me do that again. So 2021 AF 11123. Right. You put your number in there. And then you can see there are 5,706 cases before you and 27,000 cases after you in the Africa region. That yields approximately 9,346 people in front and 44,000 people after you, right? What a brilliant little tool that Zarthisius has done there. Okay, so that answers your question, I hope. Okay, I'm going to do a couple more questions and then we'll have to call it a day. Right, you filled in the DS-260 forward, then you're going to be asked for your documents when it's appropriate to ask you for your documents, and you'll send your documents in, and then you'll just wait to be current and get interviewed. That's what's next. What are my thoughts about DV 2022? It'll go ahead. Other than that, no real thoughts. It'll go ahead. Victor, I submitted my documents in November last. With the current delays, it's likely my police certificates may expire before my case is scheduled for an interview. Please, do I have to get new certificates? Only if they're if they're more than a year old. But if they're less than a year old, you don't have to. Having said that, if you feel like you want to get new certificates, that's up to you too. You're welcome to do that. Right, Sarah, please rewind to the beginning of this video where I've discussed what people such as yourself, visa holders of DV 2020, what those people should do. There was an important announcement at the beginning of this video. So you need to wait for this to be, for me to end, and then rewind to the very beginning, right? Parser. Your today's repetitive. The parrot of the day, right? A parrot just keeps saying the same thing all the time. You're doing the same thing, Parser. Stop it. Naji, you're in a WhatsApp group of Kennedy plaintiffs, but they're wondering whether they will be prioritizing the quota. Yeah, we're all wondering that. We don't know. There's no certainty about that one way or the other. Do you think Asia will become current? No, it shouldn't become current mathematically. It would be unusual and weird if it did. Please, I applied when I was in Ghana and now in Ukraine. Yep, no problem. You interview wherever you live at the time of interview. That's how it works. It doesn't matter where you are, as long as you put the right information, right? So if you were born in Ghana, you must have put your place of birth as being Ghana. You must have an Africa number, right? If you were born in Ghana. What of Group 4? I've talked about that, Gloria. I just get in here. May I ask about DV 2020 RMS? Yeah, I've talked about that. DV 2020 cases that were not issued are still waiting for the outcome of the Gomez case, and that's all. We just have to wait. And I can't predict what will happen in the Gomez case, the outcome. I can't predict how they will issue visas, whether they will issue visas, in what order they will issue visas, which cases will be. I can't predict any of that, right? None of that. Does the removal of the Muslim ban affect Nepali selectees? Not really. Not really, no. So Nepal cases are selected up to about case number 10,000. And Iranian cases and Yemeni cases, for example, are below that number, but it doesn't really matter. What affects Nepal cases is how many people out of the selectees get approved, whether they get approved or not. It's unlikely that Asia will meet its quota before Nepal gets fully processed or meets its quota, right? There is a country cap of 7% on any country. It's not an allocation, it's a cap. It means that no particular country can have more than 7% of the total number of visas issued in the world. And Nepal gets enough selectees, and those selectees get enough visas, meaning that they apply, they respond, and they get approved at such a high rate that there is a possibility that they will meet that cap or get close to that cap. And therefore, sometimes the very highest numbers in Nepal get restricted, don't get a chance. But it's fairly rare. Okay. Can I get USA passport after 2 years? I got my green card. And no, not 2 years, 5 years. 5 years. Do I think? No, I think you already answered that here, but I don't think it'll be current. No. Mohammed, I already answered this. I talked about that. Yes, that's the current form. Do I think Ted Cruz and George Fawley should be held accountable for what they did? They should be sanctioned. They should be disgraced. They should be ashamed of themselves. They won't be. They won't be sanctioned. They won't be ashamed of themselves. They are already disgraced. But what should really happen is they should be beaten, and I don't mean physically beaten, but beaten in their next election process, and they should be ejected. George Fawley, particularly, was particularly ambitious. I mean, he clearly was interested in seeking very high office. He should just have his political career ended for being such an a-hole. and not respecting the Constitution. So yeah, they got blood in their hands, those people, but unfortunately nothing will happen to them. Yeah, so Eli, what's the immigration bill means? It's difficult to say what he'll be suggesting. He's going to suggest a comprehensive immigration bill, but if you think some things like healthcare are difficult to get approved in this country, immigration is another one of those very, very difficult topics to crack. So when he talks about a bill, that means a revamping of immigration in large ways. That's very difficult to get approved. So I don't know what it will contain particularly, or the chances of success. I'll have to wait and see. To my online studies for 2 years. Yeah, you did ask the other day, Natasha. I did. I answered this on my blog and said that they're looking for a formal course of education, and that in general, some embassies will be picky about that, right? They will expect a formal course of education at school all the way through, not up to age 16 at school and then 2 years done, online. Generally speaking, that shouldn't be acceptable. Having said that, the rules about education and the way that it's implemented have changed in the last 3 years or so. And so the CEO has a little bit more latitude, a little bit more ability to approve someone's education situation based on the circumstances. So I can't tell you 100% no that it won't be accounted for, but in theory it shouldn't be. Well, a DV 2020 visa holder has had his interview, therefore wouldn't really get a chance to apply for another NIE. But we're trying to remove the bans, right? Don't go into NIEs. Let's talk about the ban. Let's remove the ban. Let's get either extensions of visas, preferably extensions without additional fees, but if necessary, extensions. But far better than that would be removing the ban and let people travel. You won the lottery after 12 years and got congratulated by COVID with a bang. Yeah, you did. Bad luck in one way. Never mind. So agreeing on being fair and not ban anyone from participating 100%. Do you think DV 2021 will continue after the fiscal year like DV 2020, maybe with the lawsuits and all? I don't know. It's a long way off. That's 8 months away, 9 months away. I don't know what's going to happen between now and then. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe. So Effie, if expired visas, right. Effie, please rewind to the beginning of the video. Make sure you understand what you need to do if you've got an unexpired visa from DV 2020. Very important that you rewind to the beginning of the video and read, hear what it said and take action. And I've just shown how to do that on Zarthisius' site. I didn't put the link there, so I'm going to put the link there. That's the link for the site, Zarthisius' site. So that's the link for you. This is, you check your status at SEAC and it appears that your case is at MVC. Does it differ from KCC? Just ignore this MVC thing. It doesn't mean anything for a DV lottery case. It's just your starting point. Every case is, when it begins, there is no sort of, it's just the starting point. There is no other way of explaining you're at the starting point. Your case is actually not at the MVC. And it's only at KCC. And your 72,000 DV 2020 didn't receive email for civil documents. You won't get an email for civil documents for quite some time because your case number is high. You're Africa, obviously. There's no other region that goes to that level. But it'll be a long time before you need to get anything. Because there's no point in you sending documents right now. Actually, if I were you, I wouldn't even have sent my DS-260 yet. There's no point because your case number is so high, right? It's going to be a long time waiting. If someone who is 29 years old and has zero experience of work and has never had a real job but has a high school diploma and university degree, can this cause a problem to obtain the visa? No, it doesn't cause a problem, but 29 years old, come on. Like, you need to do something. I mean, in life, I don't know. I don't want to sound like your dad, but time to get going, guy. At 29 years old, I'd done a lot by that time. Put it like that. But is there any reason to disqualify you for that? No, there's no reason to disqualify you for maybe you just learn very, very slowly. I don't know. When we'll know if the lawsuit, I don't know the exact date of when we'll get approval for that to be a class action, so I don't know exactly when that will happen, Laurentia. Not sure. It seems like DV 2020 is still the topic in most of your discussions. No, it doesn't. Before October 2020, all DV 2021 just wait your turn. Oh God. All right, I'm just going to ignore that because that's daft. It's like, honestly, I don't know. Some people you can't make them happy. I don't know what to say really, Francois. That's just childish. Just childish, really. Honestly, some days I speak nothing about DV 2020 and only about DV 2021. On other days, there are things to talk about with DV 2020, and it's important that I talk about those things. Will you grow up, please, and just understand that I'm doing the best I can for you and for other people? Just, come on, stop being silly. Honestly, I'm a grandfather to 6 children, 6 grandchildren, and I expect better behavior from them. Do you know any DV 2020 issued cases that succeeded in NIE? Off the top of my head, I can't think of any examples, but I think there have been a couple. Yeah, there have been some. There were also in October there were some 2021 cases that were very quickly processed, and I don't know how, but I assume that they were processed on some sort of NIE. I hope so. But there was obviously something a bit weird about those cases. Frankly, they were only in like 4 or 5 embassies. But they were probably NIE exceptions. But in general, there are. I mean, it may have happened. I mean, I'm sure that there are some cases that went through NIE. I just don't know of any particularly right now. Ain't there any way we could travel USA during this ban? I would suggest not. Just wait until the 20th. Latest 2021 docs received by KCC sent. Latest 2021 docs received. Are you asking at what level they've got to? It could be at any level, really. Sent. It depends. I don't know the numbers they've got to, and I really don't think you should think that way. It's not really about what number they get to. They could actually send a request for documents to any level, but they generally seem to organize their work sort of geared towards the lower case numbers or the case numbers that are going to become current fairly soon. But of course, at the moment, they're in sort of a hibernation mode to an extent because they don't think any cases are going to be scheduled. So I don't know which explanation, Meki, you thought was a good explanation, but thank you for saying so. Neja. Okay. You got your visa in Vietnam last September. Wife is Japanese and currently there. Got my visa and she couldn't travel. Oh, okay. You got your visa and she couldn't get the visa as well. Well, there's a chance that you could get on the 9,095 visas, but things will move very quickly. So it'll be up to you to speak to the embassy if we get that approval and see if you can get her actually interviewed. Generally speaking, people in DV cases should be interviewed together. There really isn't a follow to join process from consular processing from one embassy to another. There is, but it's not a formal process, so in general, you should not try and use that. So you may be, Naji, you may be faced with having to sponsor your spouse through an I-130 process later on, but at least you should enter the USA, get your green card, and you may be separated for a while, unfortunately, but you will be able to get through. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up. How's the COVID situation in your state, Simon? California is having a tough time because we've got the largest number of inhabitants, so we've got one of the largest numbers of cases. Other states are doing far worse in terms of numbers per head, but California is, is not where I am in particular. It's not too bad, but people are relatively careful, cautious around here, right? So, and I'm cautious. I take it seriously. And we don't go out the house for very much. We take exercise. We see a few friends who are within our social bubble, and we've all agreed. There's a small group of families. We've all agreed that we will only see each other, right? So we're limiting our exposure, and therefore we're staying sane because at least we can see some of our friends. But those friends are not seeing other friends and not having sort of social, interactions with lots of people. Sweshi, you don't often ask questions, so let me just answer one of yours. What if a substantial amount of different shares and other easily liquidable total investments totaled 40 to 50K? You could. So the thing is, Sweshi, you can try and convince a CEO that your savings and liquid assets or semi-liquid assets are enough. You can try and do that, and it would probably succeed, right? But an I-134 from a good sponsor will succeed. It's just very simple. It makes it easier. So why mess around, really? Oh, I'm going to answer this next question because I can see a problem with it. So Veronica, I'm a 2021 winner in the USA, currently F1 opt, which ends in July. I worked unauthorized 2 years ago for months. Will adjustment status be the right decision for me? No, because you broke the rules. You can't adjust the status, right? You need to do consular processing. You will be able to process consular processing, but if you do adjustment of status, you'll be denied. Okay, you shouldn't break the rules, right? Silly thing. See, I'm like everyone's dad. I tell everyone off. I know some DV 2021 interviews have taken place, and I'm talking about a handful, 15 cases or so. That's it. That's all that's taken place, and that was by special arrangement. There's something went on there, but no other cases have been interviewed. You want to ask if you have a chance. My case number is AF20. So it's not a bad case number. You have to wait and see, but it's about when we start interviews, right? We're in this waiting period before the starting of interviews. That's where we're at. And there's not much more that I can say. And predicting for this year is nonsense because it's about when the cases start getting interviewed, right? Okay. Here's a similar question, but for DV 2020. Our case is still being scheduled for interviews? No. And for DV 2021, has there been any scheduling or there has been ready for scheduling email from KCC? Yes, but there's been no scheduling for DV 2021. For DV 2020, no cases have been scheduled because as far as KCC and the embassies are concerned, DV 2020 is over. It's done. All right. Okay, people. Okay. Francois, bless you, cotton heart. We need to start focusing on DV 2021 questions instead of answering DV 2020 questions 80% of the time. Okay, look, there is nothing happening in DV 2021, right? These interviews are not starting, and I've explained very, very carefully, Francois, why that is. So I don't know what else you want me to say. Honestly, I don't, Francois. But where there are active things happening, in DV 2020 that need to be addressed. Okay. Anyway, I don't want to get grumpy again, so I'm just going to leave it there. All right. This will be the last question. Does the choice of the embassy increase the chances of acceptance? Well, you don't really choose your embassy, to be honest. You don't choose your embassy. Your embassy is chosen for you. In your DS-260, you select an embassy where you would like to be interviewed, right? And as soon as you've selected that, even straight away, even as soon as you selected that, you can't change that, right? But in reality, that's not what they use to schedule the interviews for you. They don't care about your choice. You don't have a choice. They care about your home address, and that's where they schedule your interview based on where you live. Now, having said that, if there's a reason why your case has to be interviewed somewhere else, then they will entertain those changes sometimes for good reason, but generally not. I mean, it's not just a matter of just choosing. But let me answer it a different way and say, is there a different sort of chance of acceptance at some embassies? Yes. If you look on my blog, I've produced a sort of a list of which embassies tend to have higher refusal rates or higher success rates than others. There is a difference. Some embassies are more friendly, if you like, than others. Partly that's because of the types of people they're seeing. So there are some embassies, like Ghana Embassy, for example, refuses a lot of cases, but they get a lot of fraud cases there, right? So if you look at it just as Ghana, you would say, oh, I wouldn't want to get interviewed at Ghana Embassy in Accra. But if you're an honest person in Accra, going to Accra Embassy, you should normally get a fairly fair interview. But where it becomes a little bit difficult is that at Accra, they're saying no, something like 80% of the time, 8 cases out of 10, they're saying no, they're refusing. And so it becomes very easy for them to say no. And I have seen cases at Aker Embassy in particular refused that should not have been refused, right? Because the person was honest, the person was genuine, the person had genuine documentation and got refused for some nonsense reason. I've seen that, right? And it's unfortunate. Now, on the converse side, Cairo Embassy, for example, sees a lot of cases and has very high approval rates. Does that mean that people in Cairo who live in Cairo or near Cairo are more honest than people in Ghana? I don't know. But that seems to be the outcome, right? Why is that? I can't really say with certainty, but there is a little bit of a difference between embassies. As for Turkey, I can't remember where Turkey belongs within that league table. But if you Google for Brit Simon Embassy league table, you'll see an analysis I did a few years ago, which I still believe to be accurate today. Okay, people, thanks for tuning in, and I appreciate the time you spent with me today. There's a few questions I've missed out on. I'm sorry about that, but some of the questions are repetitive, and hopefully I addressed the most important questions. For DV 2020 people with visas issued, please go back to the beginning of the video. Please go ahead and fill in that form that I've referred to. It's very important. It will help. It'll help the lawyers argue for that. For DV 2021 and beyond, let's see what happens next. Fingers crossed that Biden's going to come in and start shaking things up in a positive way, and things will get better than they currently are. But we'll also continue to fight in the Enunciator case, for example, for DV 2021. And if Biden doesn't start, playing ball for DV 2021, then the lawyers are going to be on that. And the lawyers are determined to fight for every case, every visa to be issued, right? So, they will be on that. We're losing a lot of time at the moment. I've written extensively about that. I've talked about that extensively. We're losing a lot of time. I'm very worried about that. But it's not like nobody's ignoring it. We're working on it, right? And so we'll see. All right. Okay, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Bye bye now.